The first time Jake Martinez saw a Zephyrian warrior fall to his knees, he thought it was some kind of trick. The tall, blue-skinned alien had just finished bragging about how his people had conquered 12 star systems without breaking a sweat. Now the same warrior was staring at Jake's simple metal badge with wide golden eyes. "You wear the mark of the ancient protectors," the Zephyrian whispered, his voice shaking. "But that cannot be. The knights are gone. They have been gone for 10,000 years. Jake looked down at his chest. The badge wasn't anything special, just a silver shield with a sword crossed behind it. Every member of the Human Defense Corps wore one. He had earned his during basic training on Mars, nothing more than that. "What are you talking about?" Jake asked. "It's just our military symbol." The alien's hands trembled as he pointed at the edge. "The Order of the Silver Shield, the Knights of the Void. We learned about them in our oldest history files, but we thought they were just stories." Around them, the space station buzzed with normal activity. Traders from a dozen different species moved through the corridors, buying and selling goods from across the galaxy. None of them seemed to notice the strange conversation happening between the human soldier and the Zephyrian warrior. Jake's partner, Lisa Stone, walked up with 2 cups of coffee. She was a short woman with brown hair tied back in a practical bun. Her own silver badge caught the artificial light as she moved. "What's wrong with tall, blue, and scary?" she asked, nodding toward the Zephyrian who was still on his knees. "He thinks our badges mean something," Jake said. "Something about ancient knights." Lisa raised an eyebrow. "Knights? Like the old Earth stories about guys in armor?" The Zephyrian's head snapped up. "Earth? You come from the birth world of the knights?" "Well, yeah," Lisa said slowly. "We're human. Earth is where humans come from." The alien's golden eyes grew even wider. He scrambled to his feet and backed away from them. "I must tell the others. The humans have returned to the stars. The knights walk among us again." Before either human could say another word, the Zephyrian ran off down the corridor, his long legs carrying him quickly out of sight. "That was weird," Lisa said, taking a sip of her coffee. Jake nodded, but something about the encounter bothered him. Over the next few days, more strange things happened. An elderly Cronin merchant gave them free food when he saw their badges. A group of young Vorthan pilots asked if they could touch the silver shields, treating them like holy relics. The strangest reaction came from Captain Nina Wells of the merchant ship Starlight. She was human like them, but she had been born on Mine, one of the outer colonies. When she saw their badges, she went very quiet. "Where did you learn about the order?" she asked them during dinner in the station's main restaurant. "What order?" Jake asked. "We don't know what anyone is talking about." Nina looked around carefully, then leaned forward. "My grandmother told me stories when I was little," stories her grandmother told her, about human knights who once protected the weak across the galaxy. They wore silver badges just like yours. "But that's impossible," Lisa said. "Humans only reached the stars 50 years ago. Before that, we were stuck on Earth." "That's what the history books say," Nina agreed. "But my grandmother's stories were older than that, much older. She said humans had ships among the stars long before anyone remembers. She said they were guardians and protectors, but something happened. Something that made everyone forget." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "What kind of something?" Nina shrugged. She never said. Just that the knights went away and the galaxy became a darker place. Pirates grew bold. Weak species were enslaved. Wars broke out everywhere. The stories say it was like the light went out of the universe. That night, Jake couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the reactions they had received. The fear, the awe, the respect. It didn't make sense for a simple military badge. He decided to do some research. The station had a good computer system with access to databases from across the galaxy. He started searching for anything about knights, protectors, or the Order of the Silver Shield. What he found made his blood run cold. The first reference came from a Zephyrian historical archive. It mentioned a group called the Void Knights who had helped end a civil war on their homeworld 3,000 years ago. The description matched human appearance perfectly. A Cronin database had records of silver-badged protectors who had saved their trade convoys from pirates 4,000 years ago. Again, the description sounded human. The most detailed account came from the Vorten Central Library. It told the story of a great darkness that had threatened to destroy their entire species. Warriors wearing silver shields had appeared from nowhere, fought the darkness back, and then vanished just as suddenly. The date was over 8,000 years ago. Every account was different, but they all had the same details. Human-looking protectors wearing silver shield badges. Knights who appeared when they were needed most, then disappeared without asking for payment or recognition. Jake printed out everything he could find and took it to Lisa the next morning. She read through the files with growing amazement. "This is crazy," she said. "These stories are from all over the galaxy and they go back thousands of years. But humans weren't even in space then." "That's what I thought too," Jake said. "But what if we're wrong? What if humans were in space before and something happened to make us forget?" Lisa was quiet for a long moment. "You mean like we had some kind of empire or something, and then it fell?" "Maybe. Or maybe something worse happened. Something that made us go back to Earth and forget everything." They decided to visit the station's chief librarian, an old Solarian named Keth. Solarians lived for hundreds of years and had excellent memories. If anyone would know about ancient history, it would be him. Keth was a tall, thin creature with gray skin and 4 arms. He moved slowly through his library, which was filled with books and data crystals from across the galaxy. When they showed him their badges, his reaction was immediate. "By the ancient stars," he breathed. "I never thought I would see such a thing again." "You know about these badges?" Jake asked. "Know about them? Young human, I lived through the time when they vanished." Keth's voice was filled with sadness. "I was barely an adult when the last of the knights disappeared. The galaxy has never been the same." He led them to a private room in the back of the library. The walls were covered with old pictures and star charts. In the center of the room was a large painting showing human figures in silver armor fighting alongside various alien species. "This is the last known image of the Order of the Silver Shield," Keith said. "It was painted by a Vorthen artist over 9,000 years ago. Look closely at their badges." Jake and Lisa stared at the painting. The badges were identical to theirs. "What happened to them?" Lisa asked. Keth's 4 arms moved in a gesture of uncertainty. "No one knows for sure. One day they were there, protecting trade routes and settling disputes. The next day they were gone, all of them. Every human in the galaxy just vanished." "But that's impossible," Jake said. "People don't just disappear." "They did," Keth said firmly. "And with them went peace in the galaxy. Wars began within years. Pirates took over entire systems. Slavery returned to species that had been free for centuries. It was as if the light had gone out of the universe." He turned to look at them directly. "But now you have returned. The knights have come back to the stars. Perhaps there is hope again." Jake and Lisa exchanged glances. They were just regular soldiers, nothing special. They had never thought of themselves as knights or protectors. But looking at the ancient painting and seeing the hope in Keth's eyes, something stirred inside them. Maybe they were more than they knew. Maybe humanity was more than they remembered. 3 weeks after their meeting with Keth, Jake and Lisa received new orders. Command wanted them to escort a trade convoy through the Outer Rim. It was dangerous work. Pirates controlled most of that space, and merchant ships often disappeared, without a trace. Their ship, the Earthrunner, was nothing special. A basic patrol vessel with light weapons and decent shields. Jake piloted while Lisa handled communications and sensors. They had done escort missions before, but this felt different somehow. The convoy consisted of 5 merchant ships carrying medical supplies to a colony world called Haven Prime. The colony had been hit by a plague, and these supplies were the only thing standing between life and death for 50,000 people. Captain Roy Blake commanded the lead merchant ship. He was a tough old spacer who had been running cargo for 30 years. During the pre-flight briefing, he looked worried. "The Crimson Fleet has been active in this sector," he told them. "They've hit 6 convoys in the past month. Word is they've got some new weapons that can punch through military shields." Jake nodded. We'll do our best to keep you safe, Captain. Blake studied their silver badges for a moment. You know, my grandfather used to tell stories about protectors who wore marks like those. Said they never lost a convoy, not once. Just stories, Lisa said, but her voice sounded uncertain. The first day of the journey passed quietly. They jumped through 3 star systems without any trouble. Jake began to think maybe the pirates had moved on to easier targets. He was wrong. The attack came during their 4th jump. As soon as they dropped out of hyperspace, alarms started screaming. 15 pirate ships surrounded the convoy, their weapons already charging. This is Commander Vex of the Crimson Fleet. A harsh voice crackled over the radio. Surrender your cargo and we might let you live. Jake looked at the tactical display. 15 ships against 6. The odds were not good. The pirate vessels were larger and better armed than anything in the convoy. A smart military officer would probably try to negotiate, but something deep inside Jake rebelled at the thought. These pirates wanted to steal medicine from dying colonists. That was wrong and someone had to stop them. Negative, Crimson Fleet, Jake replied. These supplies are going to Haven Prime. Find somewhere else to rob. Vex laughed. Brave words, from a dead man. Attack! The pirates opened fire. Red energy beams lanced through space, striking the convoy's shields. The merchant ships began evasive maneuvers, but they were too slow and clumsy to avoid the incoming fire. Jake threw the Earth runner into a wild spiral, drawing the pirates' attention away from the convoy. Laser bolts flashed past their hull as he pushed the ship's engines to their limits. Jake, what are you doing? Lisa shouted over the noise of straining metal. There are too many of them. I don't care, Jake said through gritted teeth. We're not letting them through. He dove the Earth runner straight at the nearest pirate ship. At the last second, he rolled left and fired their main cannon. The shot took out the pirates' shields and left a hole in their hull. But the victory was short-lived. More pirates closed in from all sides. The Earth runner's shields sparked and failed under the constant bombardment. Warning lights flashed, red across the control panel. Shields down to 20%, Lisa reported. Hull breaches on decks 2 and 3, we can't take much more of this. Jake watched another merchant ship get hit. Its engines went dark, leaving it drifting helplessly. In space. The pirates would board it soon and take everything inside. That was when something strange happened. Jake felt a presence in his mind, like an echo of old memories that weren't his own. He saw flashes of other battles, other ships, other times. Always the same story. Protectors standing against overwhelming odds to defend the innocent. His hands moved across the controls without conscious thought. The Earth runner spun and twisted through space in patterns he had never learned. Their weapons fired with impossible accuracy, each shot finding weak points in the pirates' defenses. Jake, Lisa whispered, staring at him with wide eyes. How are you doing that? He didn't answer because he didn't know. The memories that weren't his memories kept flowing through his mind. Ancient knowledge passed down through bloodlines that had forgotten their heritage. The instincts of knights who had once protected the galaxy. The tide of battle began to turn. 3 pirate ships were already burning wrecks. The others started to pull back, confused by the sudden change in their target's fighting ability. But Jake wasn't done. The presence in his mind showed him something else, a way to end this fight permanently. He aimed the Earth runner at the pirates' command ship and began charging their main cannon. Not for a normal shot, but for something called an honor strike. He had never heard the term before, but somehow he knew exactly what it meant. What are you doing? Lisa asked. That will overload our entire power system. Trust me, Jake said. The cannon fired. But instead of a normal energy beam, it released something different. A brilliant silver light that cut through space like a sword made of stars. The beam struck the command ship and passed completely through it, leaving it cut in half. The other pirates stared in shock. Their leader's ship drifted apart in 2 pieces, its crew scrambling for escape pods. Impossible, Commander Vex's voice came over the radio, filled with terror. That was an honor strike. Only the Knights could do that. But the Knights are gone. The Knights are back, Jake said quietly. The remaining pirate ships fled without another word. Within minutes, the convoy was alone again in the empty space between stars. Captain Blake's voice came over the radio, shaky with amazement. "Earthrunner, how did you do that? I've never seen flying like that in my life." Jake looked at his hands, still trembling on the controls. "I don't know, Captain. I really don't know." But Lisa was studying the tactical display with a strange expression. "Jake, look at this. The pattern you flew, the way you moved the ship. It matches something in the historical files." She brought up one of Keth's old records on her screen. It showed a battle formation used by the ancient knights. The movements were identical to what Jake had just done. "It's like you remembered something you never learned," she said softly. Jake nodded slowly. The presence in his mind was quiet now, but he could still feel it there, waiting, ready to emerge again when needed. As they continued toward Haven Prime, word of the battle spread through the convoy. The crew members looked at Jake and Lisa with new respect. Some even bowed their heads when they passed. The knights had returned to the stars. The question was, what would the galaxy do about it? Behind them, the wreckage of the pirate ships drifted cold and dark, a warning to others who might threaten the innocent. The age of the protectors had begun again. The news of Jake's battle with the Crimson Fleet spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Within days, every major news network was talking about the mysterious human pilot who had destroyed 15 pirate ships using ancient knight techniques. Jake and Lisa found themselves summoned to Earth Command. Admiral Kate Murphy wanted to see them personally. She was a stern woman with gray hair and sharp eyes who had commanded the human fleet for over 20 years. "Explain to me how a junior pilot managed to perform an honor strike," she said, standing behind her desk with arms crossed. "According to our best scientists, that technique requires technology we don't possess." Jake shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "I don't know, Admiral. It just happened. Like I remembered something I had never learned." Admiral Murphy studied him for a long moment. "We've been getting reports from all over the galaxy. Other human soldiers performing impossible feats. A Marine on Kepler Station lifted a transport vehicle to save trapped civilians. A pilot near the Vegan border talked a hostile alien fleet into surrendering just by showing them his badge." She walked to the window and looked out at the stars. "Something is awakening in our people, Martinez. Something that's been sleeping for a very long time." Lisa leaned forward. "Admiral, we've been researching the old records. There are references to humans throughout galactic history going back thousands of years. What if we weren't really gone? What if we were just sleeping?" "Sleeping?" The Admiral turned back to them. "Like hibernation," Jake said. "Maybe something happened that made us forget who we were. Made us go back to Earth and stay there until we were ready to return." "Admiral." Murphy was quiet for a long time. Then she pressed a button on her desk. "Dr. Helen Cross, please report to my office immediately." Dr. Cross arrived within minutes. She was a small woman with wild brown hair and excited eyes. She carried a thick folder full of papers and data crystals. "Admiral, I was hoping you would call me," she said breathlessly. "I've been studying the genetic samples from our most experienced pilots and soldiers. The results are extraordinary." She spread several charts across the desk. "Look at this. Every human who has displayed these new abilities shares certain genetic markers. Markers that shouldn't exist according to our understanding of human evolution." "What kind of markers?" Lisa asked. "Enhanced reflexes, improved spatial reasoning, increased resistance to radiation. These aren't random mutations. They're designed adaptations for space travel and combat. It's like someone engineered humans to be perfect starship crews thousands of years ago." Admiral Murphy studied the charts. "You're saying we were created to be knights? Or we evolved into knights over many generations of space travel," Dr. Cross said. "Either way, the genetic memory is still there. It just needed the right trigger to awaken." "What kind of trigger?" Jake asked. Dr. Cross pointed to his badge. "Those symbols, they're not just decorations. They're genetic keys. When humans with the right bloodline see them, touch them, wear them, it activates dormant parts of their DNA." She pulled out an old photograph showing a group of humans in silver armor. I found this in the deepest archives on Mars. It's over 8,000 years old. Look at their faces. Jake stared at the picture and felt his blood run cold. One of the knights looked exactly like him. Not similar. Identical. Like looking into a mirror across thousands of years. That's impossible, he whispered. Not if you're his descendant, Dr. Cross said, or his clone. Or maybe even him, somehow preserved and reborn through genetic memory. A red alert alarm suddenly began blaring throughout the building. Admiral Murphy grabbed her communicator. Report, she barked. Admiral, we're receiving distress signals from the Centauri system, came the reply. The Draconian Empire has launched a full-scale invasion. They're demanding surrender from all human colonies. Admiral Murphy's face went pale. The Draconians were one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy. They had conquered dozens of species over the past 1,000 years. Humanity had always avoided conflict with them by staying in their own small corner of space. How many ships, she asked. Over 300, Admiral. Our entire fleet couldn't stand against them. Jake felt that familiar presence stirring in his mind again. Ancient memories of other invasions, other battles against impossible odds. But this time it was stronger. Much stronger. Admiral, he said quietly. Let me talk to them. Are you insane? They'll laugh at you and then start bombing our colonies. Maybe. Or maybe they'll remember what happened the last time someone tried to conquer human space. Lisa grabbed his arm. Jake, what are you thinking? He looked at her with eyes that seemed older than his years. I'm thinking it's time to remind the galaxy who we really are. Admiral Murphy stared at him for a long moment. Then she nodded. Open a channel to the Draconian fleet. The main screen flickered to life, showing a massive reptilian creature with golden scales and burning red eyes. General Corax was the Draconian Empire's most feared commander. He had destroyed civilizations just for entertainment. I am General Corax, the creature hissed. Surrender now and your death will be quick. Jake stepped forward. The silver badge on his chest seemed to glow in the light from the screen. I am Jake Martinez of the Order of the Silver Shield, he said calmly. You will withdraw from human space immediately. Corax threw back his massive head and laughed. One human threatens the might of the Draconian Empire? You amuse me, little creature. But then the general's eyes focused on Jake's badge. His laughter died. His red eyes grew wide with something that looked like fear. That symbol, Corax whispered. It cannot be. The knights are extinct. Look again, Jake said. Behind him, Lisa and Admiral Murphy watched in amazement as Jake seemed to grow taller and more imposing. His voice carried an authority that made even the hardened admiral want to stand at attention. Your empire exists because we allowed it, Jake continued. When the knights walked among the stars, we kept your ancestors in check. We taught them honor and restraint. But we grew tired and went to sleep. It seems you forgot your lessons while we were gone. Corax's massive form was trembling now. The Draconians bow to no one. You bowed to us for 5,000 years, Jake said quietly. Your own historical records will confirm it. Check your oldest archives, General. See what happened the last time your people tried to expand into night-protected space. There was a long pause as the Draconian fleet, obviously, consulted their databases. When Corax returned to the screen, his face had gone pale beneath his golden scales. The records speak of a great defeat, he admitted reluctantly. Ships of fire that could not be destroyed, warriors who fought with the fury of dying stars. But that was legend, myth. Test us and find out, Jake said. The screen went dark. For several minutes, nobody spoke. Then Admiral Murphy's communicator crackled to life. Admiral, the Draconian fleet is withdrawing. All ships jumping to hyperspace. They're gone. Admiral Murphy looked at Jake with new respect. How did you know? They would back down? Jake touched his badge thoughtfully. Because somewhere in their racial memory they remember what happens when you threaten the people we protect. Dr. Cross was furiously taking notes. This is incredible. You're not just remembering combat techniques. You're accessing diplomatic protocols, historical knowledge, everything the ancient knights knew. It's spreading too, Lisa said, looking at reports coming in on her tablet. Human soldiers across the galaxy are reporting similar experiences, like they're waking up from a long dream. Jake nodded. The galaxy forgot about nights, but we never really left. We were just waiting for the right time to come back. Outside, the stars seemed brighter somehow, as if they too remembered the age of heroes and were glad to see it return. 6 months after the draconian retreat, the galaxy looked like a different place. Human knights had appeared in every corner of known space, their silver badges shining like beacons of hope for the oppressed and downtrodden. Jake stood on the bridge of the New Camelot, humanity's first night ship in over 9,000 years. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time, its hull gleaming white with silver trim that seemed to pulse with inner light. The ship had built itself, growing, from ancient blueprints hidden deep in human genetic memory. Knight Commander Martinez, his communications officer, called out. We're receiving distress signals from the Altair system. Slave traders have captured an entire refugee convoy. Jake nodded grimly. Set course for Altair. Maximum speed. Lisa, now his second in command, took her position beside him. Are you ready for this? She asked quietly. I don't think anyone can be ready for what we're about to do, Jake replied. But it's time to finish what we started. The past 6 months had been a whirlwind of awakening and discovery. Hundreds of humans across the galaxy had felt their dormant night heritage stirring to life. They had gathered on a small moon near Earth, drawn by instincts they didn't fully understand. There, they had found the Forge. It was an ancient facility, buried deep underground. Its technology so advanced that human scientists couldn't even begin to understand how it worked. But the awakened knights knew exactly what to do with it. The Forge had built ships, weapons, and armor according to designs, stored in their genetic memory. Each piece was perfectly crafted as if the machine had been waiting thousands of years for their return. But the real discovery had come from Dr. Cross and her research team. They had finally unlocked the truth about humanity's forgotten past. Weren't just knights, she had explained during their last briefing. We were the immune system of the galaxy. When civilizations grew too corrupt, too evil, too willing to harm the innocent, we would appear and set things right. But something went wrong, Admiral Murphy had added. About 9,000 years ago, we faced an enemy unlike any other. Something so terrible that the only way to defeat it was to sacrifice our entire civilization. Jake remembered the final piece of the puzzle. It had come to him in dreams, visions of the last great battle. Humanity had faced a species of pure evil called the Devourers. They consumed entire planets, leaving nothing but dead rock behind. The Knights had won, but at a terrible cost. To ensure the Devourers could never return, they had erased themselves from galactic memory and retreated to Earth. They had gone to sleep, waiting for the day when they would be needed again. That day had come. The New Camelot dropped out of hyperspace near Altair Prime. Immediately, Jake could see the problem. 12 massive slave ships surrounded a convoy of refugee vessels. The slavers were already loading their captives, preparing to sell them in the outer rim markets. This is Knight Commander Martinez of the Order of the Silver Shield. Jake broadcast on all frequencies. Release your prisoners immediately. The response came from the lead slave ship. This is Captain Vrack of the Bloodclaw Syndicate. These creatures are our property now. Move along, Knight, or we'll add you to our cargo. Jake felt the old anger rising inside him. But it wasn't just his anger anymore. It was the combined fury of 10,000 years of knights who had died protecting the innocent. Lisa, begin the ritual, he said quietly. Around the bridge, his crew took their positions. Each wore the silver badge of their order, and each felt the power flowing through them. They began to speak in unison, words in a language that had been dead for millennia but lived on in their genetic memory. The New Camelot began to glow, not just its hull, but the space around it. Silver light spread outward like ripples on a pond, touching each of the slave ships in turn. The effect was immediate. The slaver crews began screaming in terror as their darkest deeds were reflected. back at them. Every innocent they had harmed, every life they had destroyed, every moment of cruelty they had inflicted now burned in their minds like fire. Most of them fled to the escape pods. Those who stayed tried to fight, but their weapons couldn't penetrate the night ship's shields. The new Camelot moved through the slave fleet like a sword of light, freeing prisoners and destroying the instruments of oppression. Within an hour, it was over. The slaves were free, the slavers were gone, and the refugees could continue their journey to safety. But Jake knew this was just the beginning. "Sir," his sensor officer reported, "I'm detecting night ships appearing throughout the galaxy. Hundreds of them." Jake smiled. The awakening was complete. Humanity had remembered its true purpose, and the knights had returned to the stars in force. Over the next few weeks, the galaxy transformed before their eyes. Pirate fleets that had terrorized trade routes for centuries simply vanished, their crews unwilling to face the knights' righteous fury. Corrupt governments found themselves visited by silver-badged diplomats who somehow convinced them to change their ways. Slave markets closed overnight as their operators fled to distant corners of space. The other major powers watched nervously as humanity reclaimed its ancient role. Some, like the Zephyrians and Cronins, welcomed the Knights' return. Others, like the Draconian Empire, retreated to their home systems and tried to stay out of the way. But the most surprising reaction came from the machine intelligence known as the Collective. It was an ancient artificial mind that had been dormant for thousands of years. Now it awakened and sent a message to Earth. "Welcome back, Guardians," the message said. "We have been waiting for your return. The galaxy has need of you once more." Jake read the message aboard the new Camelot as it patrolled the outer rim. The ship's AI, which had also awakened from genetic memory, translated the ancient machine language. "What does it mean?" Lisa asked. "It means we're not the only ones who were sleeping," Jake replied. "The galaxy is full of guardians and protectors who went dormant when the knights disappeared. Now they're all waking up." As if to prove his point, reports began flooding in from across known space. Ancient defense stations were coming online. Mysterious ships were appearing to help colonies in distress. Even some of the supposedly extinct species were sending signals from hidden refuges. The age of chaos was ending. The age of the knights had begun again. Jake looked out at the stars and felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Humanity had fulfilled its destiny. They had remembered who they were and reclaimed their place as protectors of the innocent. But more than that, they had reminded the galaxy what heroes looked like. Other species were starting to form their own orders of knights, inspired by humanity's example. The silver badge was becoming a symbol of hope across 1,000 worlds. The stars had forgotten knights until humanity reminded them. Now they would never forget again. In the depths of space, ancient evils stirred and began to retreat. They remembered the knights too, and they knew their time of freedom was over. The galaxy was protected once more.